I'm joined today by David Kuenzi. David is the founder of Thun Financial, an investment management and financial planning firm with a focus on the needs of expatriates worldwide. We're going to be covering a few of the issues that American expats may experience regarding their bank accounts back home. So David, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We start with, what are the main things that Americans need to be aware of regarding their home bank accounts when they move abroad?
Well, generally what we say is that most banking and especially long-term investment accounts should be maintained for the most part in the United States for a variety of reasons. In general, this works out the best in terms of achieving ultimate long-term investment outcomes. But, of course, functionally, the main reason that this course has appeal is because, in general, especially in recent years, the cross-border regulatory environment has created huge barriers to Americans having accounts outside of the United States.
Okay, and was it last year that that this was in the news that American brokers were closing people's accounts?
Well, this has been a process that's been going on now for several years. It really began to intensify in 2010 in Europe with the passage of the FATCA legislation, which resulted in a lot of European institutions closing Americans out of their banking services. And then, subsequently, we saw a tightening on the U.S. side of the so-called Know Your Client rules. These are the rules that banks have to generally follow to make sure that they have good reason to believe that the clients they're serving and providing banking services for are compliant, are not laundering money, are not engaged in other kinds of illicit activity. And the banks have really been set a very high standard to comply with these rules. And as a consequence, many of them are simply choosing not to provide services, especially to smaller clients with smaller balances, when those clients reside in one country and are from another country or have the account in another country. So most typically, you'll find that American banks are not serving residents outside the United States, be they Americans or non-Americans. Although, again, the key point here is there's nothing in the regulations that prohibit these banks from providing these services. It's just that banks are concerned that sooner or later they potentially could be accused of not having performed sufficient due diligence and have unwittingly become complicit in money laundering operations, and that's going to come back and cost them either from the regulatory point of view or from the legal point of view, and therefore they're simply choosing to not provide these services.
I see. And so what can people do? Are there any strategies for managing finances and savings that people can make use of if they're moving abroad?
Well, if we're talking about Americans, which is mostly what we work with, we work lots of foreigners in America as well, but these things tend not to be so much of an issue on the basis of foreigners in America can generally open accounts as long as they reside in the United States as well. But when you're resident in one country and you want to have a bank account in another country, that's the bigger issue. So Americans who want to maintain their banking accounts in the United States generally face this problem. And what we recommend are a variety of strategies. So first of all, on the U.S. side, there are banks that will continue to maintain your accounts. Secondly, I always tell clients that to have these accounts opened before they leave the country, and there is no particular reason that they cannot continue to use a U.S. address on these accounts. I mean, just because you go abroad for a year on a sabbatical with the university or your job sends you abroad for a year or two does not require you in any legal sense to rearrange all of your financial affairs and put new addresses on all of your mailing designations and so forth. So technically it's not incorrect to simply there's no legal obligation for you to inform all the banks or anybody else for that matter that you are temporarily residing outside the United States. Now, when you go abroad permanently and you remain outside the United States, it becomes a little bit more of a delicate matter. But what I always say is that this is not a legal issue, it's not a tax issue. So it's between you and your relationship with your bank to determine, where you're going to receive your mail and how much information they need to know about where you may be residing. So in essence, what I'm saying is the first line of defense is don't tell the bank that you're moving to Thailand or you're moving to France or you're moving to wherever it would be that you're moving.
Is there a certain time frame? I mean, if if you maybe planned to go away for 1 year but ended up being away for 5 years, is that something you? Is there any point where you suddenly need to inform the bank?
Well, again, you're under no legal obligation to do so. I mean, we do know that banks are taking some fairly aggressive steps to identify clients that they may believe are residing outside of the United States, and they're asking them, and they're saying, well, if you're no longer resident in the United States, we can no longer maintain your account. Okay, again, that's kind of an issue of between you and your bank. If you take a trip to spend a month or two in summer, a month or two on vacation, you don't have to call the bank and inform that you're going to be out of the country. So in general, I always say that the issue is how long you intend to remain and where is your permanent domicile.
Okay, if people want to approach Thun Financial for help, how can you help them?
Well, we really focus on helping clients, be they Americans outside the United States or foreigners in the United States, invest effectively from the point of view of having efficient wealth accumulation outcomes on long-term investments in a way that complies with the whole host of cross-border issues and compliance rules that they face, because this can get extremely complicated, going way beyond merely bank accounts when we get into the realm of investing and the issue of taxation on the basis of citizenship, which is a tremendous burden for U.S. citizens wherever they are in the United States. And so from that point of view, that's where our services become very essential to Americans outside the United States who have some wealth to invest.
Great. Okay. Well, David, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, Piva, good speaking with you.